Thank you for joining us for our Beyond Woman podcast, where we have conversations that matter to the women who we serve. We want to inspire you, we want to educate you, but most importantly, we want to be change agents. We want to facilitate change in the lives of the women that we serve. I am your host, Jacqueline Walker Johnson, and joining me is my co-host, Misha Loban Clark. Hey, everyone, and we are back with our conversation podcast. I am Jacqueline Walker Johnson, founder of TheBeyondWoman, and I want to introduce you all to my co-host, Misha Laban Clark, who I met years ago while I was in investment banking. Misha at the time was a client of mine and also CEO of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of the Caribbean. She is a well-accomplished woman, and a little bit from now, I'll ask her to share with you, more of herself so that you get to know her too. And I just wanted to point out the value of for associations, because who could tell that years later, Misha and I would be spearheading a conversation podcast. And it is so important, as I'm sure she'll agree with me, that when we met, we did not even have the slightest clue that we would be here. Would you say the same, Misha?
Exactly. Hey, Jackie, and hello to your listeners. Honestly, I'm listening to you and I really concur, because just recently Tyler Perry, he was giving his motivational speech at the 2019 BET Awards, and he said, there are people whose lives are tied to your dreams. And I immediately thought of you and our association, because it really underscores the fact that on our journey, there's always purpose in the people we're connected to. And I'm really so in awe of what the Lord is doing now that we are both connected at this point in our lives.
For sure, for sure. And might I add that we're both Caribbean women, although we're outside of our home country. But
Yes.
isn't that wonderful in terms of technology, that it can, despite the distance between us, that it allows us to come together as women. And I mean, the Beyond Woman movement is not specific to any jurisdiction. It encompasses all women worldwide, and we're just happy that we're spearheading conversations that we hope will affect change in our women. But Misha, tell our listeners a little bit more about yourself, so that they'll know you. Well, not as much as I know you, but they'll know a little bit more.
Yes, I'll be very brief. The truth is, for over 20 years, I've really been a PR communication specialist, editor, writer, and currently I'm the executive director for a private sector business support organization here in Barbados. I'm a wife, a mother to 2 young children. So the truth is, Jackie, I do have a full and demanding schedule.
I know.
But what I think binds us together is the fact that you and I really do have a passion to see people tap into their unlimited potential. We're passionate about seeing people realize their own potential and pursue their purpose. And this is what the Beyond Woman movement is, and that is why I am so happy to be connected with you. So tell us, Jackie, what is today's podcast about?
Today, we are talking about self-care. It is just a very exciting time, I believe. And self-care is one of those topics that I wouldn't say, well, perhaps it was underrated in the past. It wasn't given the kind of attention that it's being given today. As a woman, recognize that there is a need to do more for themselves. No longer will we, just be taking care of business as usual and catering to the needs, because innately that's how we are.
Yes.
The default is that we think about others before we think about ourselves. Well, most women, I believe that is the situation. But I mean, with the demands that the world places on us, some of us are caregivers to children, to other people's children. We are wives, we are businesswomen, we are, as for you, for example, you are head of an organization, and I mean, we're just in a place where we are always having to do multitask, then, so to speak. And
Yes.
at what point do we take care of number one? Because listen, if you're not in a state where you are wholesome, then the people who you are even trying to help will at some point not get the full benefit of what you can give. So I mean, self-care is really a huge topic that has taken a turn recently, and we're just starting the conversation, because like everything in life, it's a journey, and there's so much to it. So Misha, you want to start? I don't know if you want to talk a little bit generally, about what self-care is to you, and how you practice self-care in your life.
Jackie, is really just to underscore what you're saying, is that it really is a topic that means so many things, different things to different people. But it is something that it's now popular, and people, it's at the forefront because of the necessity that people see when it comes to maintaining your own mental, physical, and spiritual health.
Yeah.
Trying to balance it. And I really would like to just begin by saying that very often when we are about we're on a flight and we are listening to the instructions from a flight attendant, and this is a kind of simple analogy that I'm giving, and you're told that you are to put on your own oxygen mask first before tending to anyone, even if it's your own child. And why is it that they're saying that? Is because the truth is, if you're trying to help others without ensuring your own safety on a flight, then you are going to be ineffective. You're literally going to pass out, because it is critical that your own mask is on first. So what is it that I'm saying? I'm saying self-care in a nutshell is really about it's a notion that says it's, and let me just add here, Jackie, that for years, because it says self-care, people have this notion that it is selfish because it's self-focused. But the truth is, if you are not taking care of yourself and ensure that you are healthy, both mentally, emotionally, and physically, then you can't give the best of yourself to others. And you asked me personally to speak about myself, and my disclaimer is, Jackie, that it is a journey for me. As you said earlier, I don't know that I have it all together. I mentioned that I do have a very full and demanding life, and sometimes I do feel myself, running on empty, and sometimes I really have to just, like a cell phone that is on 0%, I just have to plug in, and how I plug in may be different from how you and others are plugging. But the truth is,
Yes.
it's just about doing whatever is important, or and it's just any small thing that you can do to recharge, energize yourself. For me, it is hard, because I will leave a demanding job, and then I have to slip into
Another role.
as wife, as mother. And how kids are demanding, Jackie,
I
especially
know.
an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And sometimes my recharge really does happen after I've taken care of everybody else, and I will wind down with a good book. Sometimes just making sure I'm zoning out and tapping into that spiritual connection with God by myself. So prayer is one for me. And honestly, Jackie, just watching a good movie, a comedy, sometimes, they say laughter is good medicine. And
Indeed.
I find sometimes I am just laughing by myself after, and literally I just feel like I have erased an entire load when I just laugh. So these are the ways that I do it. Sometimes, of course, for some persons who can do a monthly spa treatment. The fact is, self-care is even just making sure that on a Saturday, everybody knows that, look, this between these hours are mommy's time, because it means hairdresser, doing my nails. But it is saying that you are putting yourself or taking care of yourself. And so I'll just end here by saying it's just really not selfish to love yourself or to take care of yourself. In fact, it is really a necessity, Jackie. And so, I mean, I would just want to hear from you too. How do you recharge? How do you take care of Jackie? What does it really mean for you?
For me, it is more on the making sure that emotionally and mentally I am in a good place. It's all well and good to do the physical things, which are important too, because once you look good, you're going to feel good. For me as an individual, because of things that I have had to deal with, take for example, I'd gone through this whole depression, like really, really bad depression in the past. Not saying that it's not with me, because I do suffer from what you call PMS or PMDD. Nothing that men can identify with, and I don't know. Unfortunately, I believe that there are some women who scoff at the whole matter of that thing that happens to us during our monthly cycle. But it's a real thing. It's something that I battle with. But based on where I am now in my life, I recognize it. I expect it. Not that I want it to be with me, but it is just one of those things that's there. So my mental well-being is very important when I think about self-care, because I can always do the spa and do my nails and but if I'm not taking care of myself mentally, making sure that my emotions are in check, doing the things that will ensure that my emotions are in check, then I am going to be in a little bit of problem. But I wanted to backtrack a little bit, because I was listening to you and I realized that being the head of an organization, being a mother, a wife, and you are also involved in different personal initiatives, such as your book club and the other things that you have to deal with. It brings me back to the whole matter of the demands that are placed on us. I think about this whole matter of balancing that. I want for us to not think balance, but I want us to think harmony, because I believe that when we think balance, it kinds of put like a number to everything that we need to do on a day-to-day basis, week by week, or monthly, however construct our lives. And what balance does, I think, is that it puts priority and tells you that this must be given this amount of time and that must be given that amount of time, when you only have so many hours during the day. And that, I think, in itself put a stress on us when we're unable to accomplish the things that we want to do, because we're balancing or we're trying to balance. But if we think harmony, which brings me back to this whole matter of taking care of yourself mentally, if we think harmoniously and say everything that we do serves a purpose and it has to be there but I don't need to give this 5 minutes, and I don't need to give everything an equal amount of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Then
yes.
I think it allows us to be in a better place mentally. And that is one of the things that I want us to start thinking about. If you agree, let us think harmony and not necessarily balance, because that will help us in terms of, our whole self care. And all this
Yes.
points back to is this whole matter of self preservation, making sure that whatever we are doing, we're taking care of number one, because it is absolutely important. And let me tell you,
Very.
this thing just ties right back in, because if you're not taking care of yourself, how are you going to take care of anybody else? Like,
No, you
seriously,
can't.
how are you going to take care of anybody else? For me, it's just making sure that my emotional well-being is really looked after. I think that that does it for me. Once that is done, then you'll find that I am in a peaceful place, so to speak.
I have been reading, and it really tells us that it first begins with the mind, exactly what you're saying, our thoughts. Ensuring that we have this kind of positive mindset and positive thought patterns, so that is what you think when you speak of emotional and mental wellness. You're
Mm-hmm.
all you ensure that you are not focusing on the things that you're not getting right, because you are so correct. It is not about trying to balance anything because can you imagine trying to balance all these balls in the air at one time? Of course you're going to be stressed, and of course you're going to be dropping some, um and you're going to be losing out on some things, and some things may not be good. But I think what we all need to do is approach even the hectic life and hectic schedule that we have, approach it with the mindset that you alluded to earlier, that we give of our best, and we are doing the best that we can, and we're not doing a 1 2 3, because it can't be right, because we're multifunctional and multifaceted beings, and even the people and the that we serve, um in whatever sphere of our lives, it can't be that we're saying, okay, you get priority first. It is just really, as you stated earlier, ensuring that you are keeping that harmony, keep doing the best, giving out, and as you give out and give of your best in everything, then you also look to, how do I continue every day to recharge? How do I continue to plug in and take care of myself so that I can continue to effectively do all of this? And the truth is, it is said that when you practice self-care, what it does, it forces you to keep in the whole scheme of all that you're doing, you are keeping yourself as one element of that also needs to be taken care of, and you're not forgetting yourself in that process. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
so you're giving, you're feeding and nourishing yourself as well, at the same time as you are meeting the needs of others.
I want to touch on the whole point of, lifestyle diseases, the choices that we make. Research has shown that a lot of the illnesses that we are faced with on a day-to-day basis is directed or directly associated with what we choose for ourselves. And in choosing for ourselves, that also is a part of self-care. What is it that we're focused on? What is it that we're putting in our bodies? And that is why I'm saying it is wholesome. It speaks to all aspects of our lives then. So you
Yes.
understand how important self-care is. You understand that the choices that you make today can affect tomorrow, and it's not necessarily about what we eat. It's the environment that we're existing in. I have to smile when I think about this, because I don't know how many of the persons who are listening are like 40 or over. But I have to say that when I got to my 40s, Misha, was a very transformative period that I have begun to see um, clearly. You know that song that says, I can see clearly
Yes.
now. Yeah. So it allows me to see more clearly, the choices that I'm making, what's good for me. And what it did was that it gave me a boldness that I did not have before. I don't know what it does. I don't know, but it was everything is mental for me. So it was
Yeah.
a mental shift. I just had to take stock of what was going on in my life,
Yes.
and I had to begin to say no to certain things and yes to those things that I was saying no to, the
Right.
things that, because, as human beings, we automatically gravitate towards the things that are not really good for us, majority of us.
It's unnatural in some ways, yes.
So I'm saying that when I got to my 40s, the scales were lifted from my eyes and I was able to see more clearly. And that in itself, too, was another aspect of how I believe that this whole process of self care played out in my life.
Yes.
I think that we need to begin to assess our environment and the things that are in our environment. And if it's toxic, we need to get rid of it. And it speaks to the people, it speaks to maybe a work situation, but you need to proactively decide that this is not for me, and I want out. And I think more and more we're beginning to realize this is important. But I think that we have begun to recognize that our emotional health and what we're surrounding ourselves is far more important, because at the end of the day, if you're not taking care of yourself, I believe that stress is what is going to take that place. And when you have stress in your life, what does that lead to? A deterioration. It leads to sickness, it leads to disease, it leads to death,
Yeah.
and not necessarily physical death, but existing and not living. But let us talk a little bit about the ways in which we can take care of number one.
I think you alluded to one, which is the ability to say no, and ensure that we are reducing and taking that conscious decision to reduce our stress levels. And the truth is, self-care tips can be something as small as picking up your favorite latte on your way to work, or the grander scale, which is going on vacation. But in terms of tips that it's for everyday practices that can ensure that we are prioritizing some kind of nourishment of and re-energizing of ours and recharging of ourselves, and activities such as practice getting physical. It is ensuring your physical health, of course, but it is also nourishing your mental and emotional health as well,
I guess
because
everything ties in, right?
yes, it does. So you're doing some kind of physical activity, whether or not you're somebody who loves the gym, whether or not you're actually just loving something, a physical activity like gardening or walking or dancing. The fact is, all of that will take care of not just your physical health. I mean, and I can't tell you, as we are discussing this topic, that I'm consistent when it comes on to physical health. But there was, on Saturday mornings, I would take Zara to dancing, and then while I'm waiting for her, I would go to the gym. And even though Saturday mornings probably was the only consistent time I was going to the gym, but that time I spent on the treadmill, Jackie, and I'm listening to something motivational while I'm on the treadmill. I when I'm finished, even though I am physically tired, having done that the exercise, whether it's an interval or just doing some walk, a 30 to 45 minutes on the treadmill. But at the end of the day, mentally I was at a good place,
Right.
and emotionally I felt at a good place. And I was a better person for the day, as again, sometimes when I'm not doing anything physical to kind of burn off stress and everything is coming at me. And then I realized that I'm not very tolerant to the kids, or I'm not very tolerant to the things around me, because I'm not finding an outlet to de-stress
Mm-hmm.
and de-stress and also to recharge. Another thing is, oh gosh, Jackie, eating nutritious meals.
That's a
There's
struggle for
it's
me, you know.
Yes, it is. But yes, but I find, Jackie, that when I'm putting in the wrong kind of foods, I feel my body. It's as if it is speaking to me and it is protesting. But when you really practice mindful eating, as in you're not just only eating the right foods, but when you actually decide that you're gonna carve out for yourself the time that you sit to enjoy a meal, and I say that enjoy a meal, meaning you are mindfully aware of what it is that you are putting into your body, because they say even the health and the kind of nutritional value that you get from food even has to be relates to how you are, how you appreciate the food that is in front of you, and you're not therefore thinking about, you're not unconsciously eating while thinking about the next phone call or the next meeting that you have to prepare for.
Right, right.
But just as how we have to sit and give our full attention to our children, because that's what they then receive as your quality time and attention, it is the same way we should treat our bodies when we sit down to eat, is that we're fueling, we are nourishing our body. So take the time, even if it is just the one meal for the day, you decide that it's lunch, that you're going to walk away from the office. And I just wanted to share this one with you, because on the point of food, I read something that someone said, and I said to my body softly, I want to be your friend. And it took a long breath and replied, I've been waiting my whole life for this. And I feel that our bodies
I love that
actually,
quote.
yes, our bodies actually sends us signals of appreciation when we are taking time out to nourish it with the right kind of food, the right kind of thoughts, the
Yeah.
right kind of physical activity, because we're saying to our bodies that I value you in the same way we value work or we value our children. And from a spiritual perspective, Jackie, the truth is, we are created in the image of God, and we are expected, this is our temple. Our bodies are the temple of God, and it is expected that we should really be taking care of ourselves. So we should really be nourishing our minds with positive thoughts. Practice daily, that's another self-care tip. Practice daily to focus on a spirit of gratitude. You
Yeah.
don't know how you are, the kind of things you are sending to your mind in terms of wellness, coming back to your emphasis on mental wellness. When you take the time out to practice on a daily basis, rather than focus on the negativity, focus on just a spirit of gratitude. The what you end up feeding your mind with the positives, just as how you are feeding your body with a nourishing meal.
I guess what you're doing is just being mindful, just being present and understanding what it is that
Correct.
you're exposing yourself to. We could never exhaust this topic, and that is why
Never.
it's the recommendation that each woman goes and do the research for herself and try and figure out what works for her. Just from my end, I think I alluded to most of them. These are more like the unorthodox, ways of practicing self-care. And one of the things is knowing what you're good at. This whole
Yes.
comparison game, we don't need to look at another person and try to be like them. And when it doesn't work, we're all stressed out. So we need to be mindful of that. Know what is your strength, what is your weakness, and stick to the strength. Work on the strength. I said already in terms of making sure that your environment is toxic proof. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
don't need anything negative in your environment. Try as
Correct.
and make sure that the energy that you are giving off is a positive one, because whatever energy you give off will always come back to you. Just generally, as you said before, Misha, and it's just being present and being mindful of the things that are good for us and what is not good for us. And it's just a journey that we're all on, and I don't think that we need to get feeling overwhelmed because of the topic. You know, just be mindful and try and be intentional. Just create a plan. You know, just create a plan. Whatever it is that you want to accomplish in life, you really should create a plan. Write it down. Do journaling is very important, I
Yeah.
believe. It always amazes me when I go back and I read some of the things that I write down. You know, so journaling is good. And develop your own rhythm, you know,
Yes.
where self-care is concerned, and just be intentional about how you live. Understand what will make you thrive as an individual, what will make you the best you, you know.
Yes.
And like I said, this topic is huge and we could talk about it a lot, and we could go on and on. Maybe we need to think about doing a part two and maybe inviting some other women to share their take on this whole matter of self-care.
Yes,
But
I'd love that, Jackie. So we're wrapping up, and I just think we can just reiterate that self-care, as you have said and I have said, it's really about being conscious, being intentional. And it matters not what you do, but it's at the end of the day how you prioritize taking care of yourself. And it's not prioritizing above anyone else, but really just ensuring that you are focusing on yourself as well, so that you are energized. Because when you are happy, you have nourished yourself, then you have something to pour out to others. And I would just end by saying, Jackie, nourishing yourself is really a joyful but necessary experience, and we should see the time that we spend nourishing ourselves as being worth it. Because self-care, it's not selfish, it really is a necessity when we take care of ourselves and make our happiness a priority.
absolutely. And what a wonderful way to end. It was great sharing with you, Misha. And I'm looking forward to our other conversation that will be focused on kindness. Kindness is one of those things that are commonplace in our lives, but
Yes,
perhaps
yes.
not one of those things that we focus on as much as we need to. So join us for that conversation as we continue talking about things that matter to women, things that
Yeah.
can cause change, not just inspiration, but change. Have a wonderful one.
Thank you, Jackie. It was a pleasure sharing with you.